everyone, welcome back to Mariana Math Books. My name is Mariana and today we need to talk about this and this, which is the same just on different editions, and that is the poem of the seed, as you can probably have foretold from the title. I have been talking about this poem since I did my Ancients-a-thon TBR, and then when I did my mid-year freakout tag, and then in my Ancients-a-thon wrap-up, and I can't shut up about it because I am obsessed, and I am making this video because this is a criminally underrated classic. Criminally underrated classic. And I need more people to read it. Granted, this is a medieval epic poem, and I know that it's not exactly something that everyone is going to come running to, but for people who love medieval literature, please do not sleep on this, because why? Oh, I have also made a Poetry Thursday video about it. So before I tell you about my reading experience with the poem, I'll tell you what the poem is about generally and the type of poem that it is. The Mio Cid is, I'm just calling it the Mio Cid because that's the name in Spanish. You hear Cid, you hear Mio, so Mio Cid. So the Mio Cid is a Spanish epic poem from around the year 1200. You know how it is with these types of works, and it concerns the deeds and a certain time period of the life of Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, who was known as the Cid, who was a Spanish knight from the 1000s. The Cid died in the year 1099, I believe, and the poem is from around 1200, which has made some scholars believe that this is a very historically accurate poem, which I won't get into because there's a whole discussion about it. Do we know that this person was a historical figure? Yes. Are there a lot of people here that have been real historically? Yes. Are there events that actually happened in history? Yes. But that doesn't mean that everything that happens in the poem is historically accurate. And there's actually a very interesting introduction in here that talks about the waste of time, according to this author, that it is to try to discern if it's historically accurate or not, and that many scholars have wasted their times trying to do comparisons and parallels where certain people here with different names. There are scholars who try to match who in history were the people, and according to Colin Smith, who edited this edition, it's a waste of time because the point of poetry is the beauty and the storytelling in the case of this type of narrative long form epic poetry, and not the historical accuracy. But if you're interested in that, there is a whole discussion if you read it. But yeah, so mainly this is a poem divided into 3 parts. The first part tells the story of the first exile of Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar from the Kingdom of Castile. Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar was exiled several times throughout his lifetime, so the poem starts with his first exile from Castile. So that's where the poem starts. The first part concerns basically his exile and some of the battles that he does while he's exiled, and him winning the kingdom of Valencia from the Moors. This was a time period where the Moors had conquered Spain, and so you have Spanish kingdoms and you have Moorish kingdoms. Basically, it's like the Cid against the Moors in part 1. And then part 2 is called The Weddings of the Daughters of the Cid, and a lot more happens. There are many things that happen. Mostly in the second part, it starts turning more into a political and negotiations and family drama. That was something that I didn't expect from the poem, and that is one of the reasons why I think this is criminally underrated, because it's basically part 2 and 3 are basically family drama and courtroom drama, and why wouldn't you want to read that? It's so entertaining. It's basically a soap opera. And so part 2 is about the weddings of the daughters of the Cid, and then part 3 is the drama ensues and the drama grows because the husbands turn out to be assholes. Basically, they end up betraying the Cid, and I'm wondering how much to tell you, because on one hand I really want you to read this, and so I don't want to spoil it for you, but on the other hand I'm like, how many people are actually going to read it? And maybe I will convince them to read it if I tell them all of the drama. And then I'm also like, can you really spoil epic poetry? I think you can, because epic poetry is basically narrative, but you know, how fair is it to say that I'm spoiling a piece of work from the 1200s? I'm just going to say it, okay? I'm not going to go into full detail, but I'm going to say the basic events. So the asshole husbands end up taking the wives or the daughters of the Cid with the rules that they are going to take them to their hometown or homelands, because they're lords, and give them their lands and stuff, but they end up attacking them. And I am not using that as a euphemism. It's an attack, not a rape. That is important to me because I don't like using euphemisms for that. Anyway, they are attacked and they end up violently attacking them. Surprisingly graphic and violent, that part. I mean, for a poem of this type. Not that I have read a lot of poems. See, this has made me want to read more medieval poetry. Everyone finds out, they are rescued, and the Cid demands from the king to get revenge, and so they hold a court at court. a trial. They hold a trial at court. And when I tell you that the trial was so good, you know, all those memes of tea and popcorn and, you know, Meryl Streep shouting. Oh, I was all those memes while reading the trial portion of this poem. The phrase traitorous dogs was used. It's so satisfying to read. It's just basically men throwing insults at each other and presenting challenges to each other. It is so good and it is so riveting. If you saw my Poetry Thursday video about this, you know that I was reading this here, which is in the old Spanish, and I was very slowly reading it because, you know, you have to keep cross-referencing with the glossary that is at the back. And I also had this edition, which is like one of those where you have on one side the old Spanish and on the other side the modern Spanish. And so I was complementing when I needed more help. I read the modern Spanish, so that's how I started. But there was a point where I got so engrossed in the story that I really just wanted to keep knowing what happened, and so I decided to switch. And honestly, most of part 2 and all of part 3 I basically read in the modern Spanish in this edition. And you know, it's a great read when instead of tabs I start dog-earing the book, because I am so engrossed in the story that I don't have time for tabs, for like really carefully tabbing lovingly the book. And so what I did was that I ended up reading the poem in the modern Spanish, and now I'm going to slowly go back and read my favorite parts in the all Spanish. Oh yeah, I was going to tell you who my favorite character in this is, and it is Pedro Bermudez, who is the nephew of Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, and he's surprisingly not a lot in this, but he plays a big part in the third part of the poem, and especially during like the rescue and the trial and stuff, and he's my favorite. I desperately want an adaptation of this, like a mini series, or even just like a good 3 hour or 2.5, I'm not picky, hour movie of this, a good adaptation. There is a 60s or 70s, I'm not sure, movie with Charlton Heston playing the Cid, which, you know, it's bad. I haven't watched it, I just watched the trailer, but you know it's bad when not even the fact that Charlton Heston plays him is what offends me the most. Because, you know, like, whitewashing in Hollywood, what else is new? The thing that offends me the most is that he doesn't have a beard. Literally, it makes me, it makes me so angry that he doesn't have a beard. The amount of descriptions of the Cid's beard in here is insane, and his beard is also like very symbolic to his status, and he takes care of his beard, like literally the amount of verses dedicated to his beard. He's even sometimes, instead of referred as the Cid, he's referred as like the one with the fair beard or the one with the long beard. Like in the trial, there is a final confrontation where he keeps his beard long, and it's this thing kind of like a Dothraki braid thing where they don't cut it. I mean braid, where they don't cut it because the longer the braid, it means that they haven't lost in battle. It's kind of the same with his beard. And listen, I understand that if you're making a modern adaptation of this, maybe you don't want a guy with like a Rapunzel beard. But just give him some facial hair, for the love of God. And then there is even a modern adaptation, and I mean modern, like recent, from a couple of years ago. A Spanish production. I couldn't even finish watching the trailer. That's how bad it is. And he also doesn't have a beard. Where is his beard? Where is Rodrigo's beard? Please. Anyway, I need an adaptation, like a good adaptation of this, or I would love for this to be more well known. You know how it's now in vogue for authors, and especially women authors, to do retellings, and do retellings from like the perspective of women, and I would die for a retelling of this from the perspective of the daughters or the wife of the Cid, who are Doña Elvira, Doña Sol, and Doña Jimena, just because I want to say their names. I would die for that. I don't know. I know that like the big Spanish classic that everyone reads is Don Quixote, and sure, like fine, it's good. I'm you know, I haven't finished it, but like it's funny, I get it. But this is equally amazing. Chef's kiss. Now I'm going to end the video. Oh, one last thing. Sorry. Oh my god. I'm sorry. This video. If you have read The Lions of Alrazan, check it out, because Rodrigo from The Lions of Alrazan is this Rodrigo. Yeah. And there are many characters here. There's a character named Alvar who is very close to Rodrigo. Does that sound familiar? And there are two guides to nephews who are very I don't know, they remind me of the two scouts of Rodrigo in the Lions of Arbasan. And if you haven't read the Lions of Arbasan but you're thinking about reading it, I highly recommend reading that and then reading this. Like, that combo, top tier reading experience, I tell you. Now I'm finishing the video. Now I'm actually finishing the video. I hope you're having a good week. I will see you soonish with another bookish video. Please tell me whatever in the comments. I don't know what you can comment in a rambly video like this. And in the meantime, I wish you happy reading.